President Volodymyr Zelensky. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt provides the latest updates.
Following the encouraging conversations yesterday, President Trump spoke with President Putin by phone, and he agreed to begin the next phase of the peace process, a meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky, which would be followed, if necessary, by a trilateral meeting between President Putin, President Zelensky, and President Trump. As the president said, Vice President Vance, Secretary Rubio, and Special Envoy Witkoff will continue to coordinate with Russia and Ukraine to make this happen as soon as possible.
The White House says Russia has always greatly respected President Trump and his peace through strength foreign policy approach. The White House says the bilateral talks in Alaska were very productive, and the two leaders agreed to multiple key points that open up the door for Phase 2 discussions. The White House also expressed optimism about an opportunity for lasting peace. Leavitt says that every European leader at the meeting yesterday credited Trump for his leadership that reignited the peace dialogue.
That's because President Trump is the peace president, and American leadership is back on the world stage. It should not be lost on anyone in this room that world leaders are coming right here to Washington, D.C. for help. While previous presidents have traveled halfway around the world to apologize for America, President Trump stands up for America, and he has firmly restored America's status as the undisputed leader of the free world.
The White House emphasizes that Trump believes diplomacy requires open dialogue and that he understands what both sides want. Trump has said that in order to get a good deal, both sides are going to have to walk away a little bit unhappy. President Trump says there won't be American troops on the ground in Ukraine, this just one day after a major meeting of European leaders in Washington discussing potential security guarantees for Kyiv. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has more on the ongoing effort to achieve peace in Ukraine.
Global leaders keep working toward peace in Ukraine on Tuesday. This just one day after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky joined multiple European heads of state in a visit to Washington. Among them were leaders from Britain and France, who have previously said they're open to deploying troops to Ukraine as peacekeepers after a possible peace deal. While talking to Fox News on Tuesday, President Trump suggested that this means there's no need for American soldiers in Ukraine.
It won't be American boots on the ground defending that border.
Well, you have my assurance, and I'm president, and I'm just trying to stop people from being killed.
Trump met with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Friday. He's working to close the gap and get the two sides to agree to a peace deal.
We're going to find out about President Putin in the next couple of weeks, that I can tell you. And we're going to see where it all goes. It's possible that he doesn't want to make a deal.
But Trump acknowledges that Putin might not be willing to make a deal. The next step in the process is a possible meeting with Putin and Zelensky. French President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday recommended that such a meeting could be held either in Rome or in Geneva. Meanwhile, Russia's foreign minister says land swaps between Russia and Ukraine might be necessary for a possible peace deal.
Territorial changes are often an essential component of conflict resolution. There are many such examples.
Russia currently occupies around a fifth of Ukraine. President Trump previously said that he wants to help Ukraine get back the land which Russia annexed after the invasion. And the Coalition of the Willing had a virtual meeting on Tuesday, further talking about the Ukraine war. The coalition is a group of nations created to support Ukraine. They're now working on security guarantees for Kyiv, but the group only just started.
There have been no decisions thus far as what comes to the overall framework and neither to the individual contributions.
Members of the coalition say they're still early in the process and details have to be worked out. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
President Trump is urging Russia to accept a ceasefire in Ukraine. Differences remain, however, over security guarantees and Ukraine's future in NATO and the EU. Some experts remain skeptical that an agreement can be reached. NTD international correspondent David Vivez explains.
During a press conference at the White House on Monday, EU leaders called for pressure on Russia to accept a ceasefire. Speaking before his meeting with Trump, French President Emmanuel Macron said there would need to be a strong Ukrainian army as part of the security conditions for any peace deal. The US administration has addressed that the root causes of the conflict in Ukraine should be discussed. One of the motives cited by Putin was the demilitarization of Ukraine and preventing it from joining NATO. Although President Trump gave President Putin guarantees on that point, several experts have noticed mixed signals from European leaders that may go against this stance, including those from President Macron. According to a former investigator with the Organizations for Security and Cooperation in Europe and author of What I Saw in Ukraine, EU leaders have not moved from their full support of Ukraine.
The recent statements we heard from European leaders, such as Russia should have no say whether Ukraine can join NATO or not, or that the Ukrainian military should not be limited in size as part of any agreement. This goes directly against the declared purposes of the special military operations that the Russians launched in February 2022. So, and the Russians continue to say until now that they would not accept any peace deal that would not address the root causes of the conflict.
During the 3 years of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, EU leaders have moved forward with proposals for Ukraine's integration into the EU, along with plans to reinforce military cooperation in the long term. Paris says this could be the crucial point to resolve in the coming negotiations for a peace deal.
At least Trump is sincere regarding the idea of reaching a peace agreement in Ukraine. I think the intent is there. Whether he can achieve it is a different question, because he doesn't have all the leverage in this case. I think it's a good thing that there are talks, right? It's better to have talks than no talks at all. But even we know, as I said, that positions are very far apart to start with.
The definition of the necessary security conditions was at the heart of yesterday's negotiations between EU leaders and President Trump. In April, Vladimir Putin rejected an earlier plan by President Macron and Chancellor Scholz to send a European armed force, a coalition of the willing, to secure Ukraine. However, President Trump said Russia has agreed to security guarantees proposed by Western allies. Experts believe that if this materializes, it would be a major step toward a peace plan. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
More Russian attacks in Ukraine as peace negotiations continue. Ukraine's energy ministry said today an overnight Russian attack hit energy facilities in the Poltava region, causing large fires. The ministry said several dozen drones targeted a gas transport facility, causing damage. The ministry did not specify what other facilities besides gas infrastructure were attacked. Russian media reported an oil refinery supplying fuel to Ukrainian armed forces were struck. The Poltava region is home to Ukraine's only oil refinery, Kremenchuk. The facility has been repeatedly attacked by both drones and missiles. The ministry said Ukrainian energy facilities had been attacked 2,900 times since March 2025. Joining us now to discuss key takeaways from yesterday's White House meeting on the Ukraine war is Mike Leon, NTD News contributor and host of